Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to do these whimsical blue spring nails, including how to prepare your press-ons. I'll be showing you how to do the nail art step by step as well. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and like so you can follow along for more in-depth tutorials ranging from polygel tutorials to nail art tutorials like this one. Leave a comment below letting me know what you think of this set, and I hope you enjoy this tutorial. And we are going to be using nail products from my brand. You can shop at doperthanyournails.com. The link is in the description. We have a variety of gel polishes, polygels, art gels, and brushes. And today we're going to be using some of our gel polishes and art gels. And you can always use code YouTube to save 10% at checkout. And the link will be in the description. So for this nail set, please don't mind my press-on nail stand. One of the nail stands for that particular set is missing. But anyhow, we're going to be using these kind of long almond full cover nail tips. I've used these a lot in my nail sets. They're one of my favorite nail shapes to use, and these fit my nails really well. These are the Welquin XL Stiletto full cover tips from Amazon. And so I'm just going to go ahead and size out my nail tips and select all 10 nails. You want to make sure they fit sidewall to sidewall on your nail. And for adhering the press-on nail, I like to use these adhesive tabs. I find they work way better than putty. So you just want a tab basically placed on the press-on nail stand, and then you just want to press and hold for about 10 seconds with pressure. So this is how you basically do it. Go ahead and apply one of the adhesive tabs, peel off the plastic, and then you basically stick your press-on nail on there, and they should be pretty secure at that point. And I am going to reshape the free edge ever so slightly. I would recommend this in general for any pre-shaped tip, just because sometimes there's a little bit of a piece of plastic hanging off at the edge. But also it'll just give you a little bit more of a crispy shape in general. So just to kind of round these out, I'm filing under the free edge, and then I'm just slightly rounding out the free edge around the corners. So for an almond or a round shape, pretty much filing under the free edge will help round it out, and then you can finish it off by rounding out the corners like I'm doing here, and you can see the difference between the two. Even if it's ever so slight, it does make a big difference. So if you were doing a shorter almond nail or a more of a round nail, you would use the same technique of filing under the free edge. Even if you were doing like polygel extensions, this is the technique that you would use to achieve that round shape. I'm also going to buff the surface. This is just kind of going to help remove the shine and just kind of help even everything out. I mean, it should be pretty even because it's a plastic nail tip, but I do find this kind of helps even when doing press-on nails. I don't do it all the time, but today I wanted to do like a full prep routine because I haven't done that in a while. So I would normally buff or use a fine grit sanding band if you don't have a buffer, like a 240 grit would be okay. You could also use that as well to achieve the same look, but I do find, you know, with a buffer, you're gonna get more of like a fine and smooth finish. This is how everything is looking, and I'm gonna take some alcohol and a lint-free wipe and just remove that dust, including underneath the nail. Sometimes that dust will get kind of stuck in between or under the nail as well, especially with this kind of shape. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the lint-free wipe under there as well. Now you could use a base coat, but if you wanted to add an extra layer of strength to your press-ons, what you could do is do a thin layer of builder gel or a builder in a bottle. You really don't need to kind of float the product necessarily. This is a really thick one, so I was just kind of doing that motion a little bit. But for the most part, just do like a thin layer, unless you're really trying to build up some sort of structure or something, which I don't think you really have to do with these nail tips. They kind of already have a little bit of a sculpted look. But you can also flip the nail over as well to help it self-level. I do this for about 10 to 15 seconds, and this will definitely add a layer of strength to your press-on nails. And I would highly recommend this if you are just doing this for yourself, but especially like for clients, if you're like a press-on nail artist, it'll definitely help your nails have kind of an extra layer of strength and just be a little bit more firm and durable in comparison to like polygel nails or acrylic nails or gel X nails. They won't be as flimsy basically. And here are the base colors we're going to be using. Both colors are from my brand. So the blue color is one of my personal favorites from the Sugar Plum Fairy collection. This is our full collection here. It's called Blue Hour, and I can't tell you how many hours, days, months I spent on this color. It turned out exactly how I wanted in the end. It has this kind of deep blue purple base and this really stunning kind of glitter shift, and it's my personal favorite color, and I really wanted to use it for a spring set. I don't feel like I see a lot of blue spring nails, or in this case kind of like a dark blue. And then we're also going to be using Lunar Gaze, which is one of our art gels, and our art gel brush. This is from the Celestial Love collection. This color is kind of a milky white with a very fine pink glitter and a chrome shift. It's super stunning on its own, or you could layer it over any color. It looks really stunning over white. If you do it over like black or other different colors, you'll get different effects. But the chrome shift on this is just super stunning. And I'm just using our art gel brush to apply that. And I'm gonna go ahead and finish that off for all 10 nails. I am doing 10 nails, but you're only gonna see me paint and draw on 5 of them, just because you're gonna repeat the same thing for the other hand. So we're just alternating Blue Hour, then Lunar Gaze on each of the nails, and then you'll end up with something that looks like this, and you'll repeat that on the other hand for the other nails as well, like I mentioned. Now for the nail art. So for our first nail, I'm taking Winter's Veil, which is our kind of silvery white pearlescent gel polish, super stunning color and very versatile, and we're going to be doing a stained glass nail. So this window is going to be a half rounded arched window. So I'm drawing the arch at the top and then drawing the sides of the window and then connecting that, and then I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. And you'll see why I'm using this Winter's Veil color, because when you've laid down the base, you can actually take a dotting tool and swirl that around to create kind of a pearly effect. It looks really stunning, and because we're going to be using some jelly gel polishes over it, I just thought it would add a really cool effect. So basically I kind of freestyled my own way of doing this stained glass window. I haven't really seen anybody else do it this way necessarily, but I just thought it would be a really cool way to kind of incorporate Winter's Veil, which, as you guys know, I use pretty much for every set. It's probably my most frequently used color from the Sugar Plum Fairy collection. So anyways, once you've laid down that base, like I mentioned, you're just going to take a dotting tool and swirl that around and then go ahead and cure that. And now for drawing the outline of the window, I'm taking a silver gel paint and I'm applying it kind of thick because I really want the outline of the window to pop. I don't want it to get lost in the different colors that we're applying. So I just outlined the window, and now I'm doing kind of a little moon detail here. I just wanted to add a couple of whimsical details, and then I'm drawing in the outlines of the window. So we're just doing some lines here and kind of connecting them. Just kind of stacking them basically and alternating them. And again, I'm trying to make sure that they're pretty thick. And now I'm going to go ahead and cure that and fill that in with a few jelly polish colors. I don't mention new products a ton on my other socials, but I will say, if you're watching this, these are new colors that are going to be coming very soon, and I'm very excited about them. So we have a bunch of new colors releasing for this summer. I won't reveal the theme or anything just yet, but the collection should be out, I would say maybe in another month and a half max, hopefully. But like I said, I don't really mention this so much on my other socials now, but I do love mentioning it on YouTube because I get a chance to talk more on here. So anyways, if you're seeing any of these colors, they will be out very soon. So I'm just taking a few different colors, basically the blue, the purple, the kind of sage green, and kind of the deep yellow color, and just alternating them and adding them to the different squares. And I'm adding kind of a very light layer. I'm not making them super thick because I do want that pearlescent effect to still kind of shine through. So many of these colors are just so pigmented and stunning, especially this blue. It just reminds me of like a pool in the summer, and the purple, but that's all I'll say for these colors. So anyways, that's basically the stained glass nails. The jelly polish colors work really well for that, and I really love how this turned out. I think it really captured kind of the whimsical effect that I was going for. And really, you could do any design for the window that you wanted. You don't have to do this exactly. And we're gonna go ahead and do another stained glass nail on the thumb for the other hand. For this one, I'm gonna do a circular shape. So again, I'm applying it kind of thick and just drawing the kind of rough outline of the circle. And then we're gonna go ahead and fill that in as well and follow the same technique of just kind of swirling around the polish once we've laid down the base. And I would apply it just a little bit generously and thick, just so when you kind of swirl it around, the blue hour color underneath doesn't shine through too much, because blue hour is so pigmented as well and it's kind of a dark color. So I am applying a pretty generous layer, and also it just gives you a little bit more product to swirl around to kind of create the effect that we're going for. And I guess I didn't film me swirling it around, but I used a dotting tool for that. And now I'm taking that same silver gel paint and just drawing some stars, and again outlining the perimeter of the circle, again keeping the outlines pretty thick just so they don't kind of fade away once we start adding all the details, that those are kind of like really prominent and kind of the focus of the design. And we're kind of following the same technique here of just drawing different patterns of rectangles and squares and just kind of making sure it's all symmetrical and even. And once that's done, you can go ahead and cure, and we're gonna use the same jelly colors to go ahead and fill that in and just make sure that they're kind of alternating and that the same two colors aren't necessarily touching. I liked using the yellowish orange color or it's actually more of a deep yellow for the stars. And then I started layering in that blue, and again, that pearlescent effect really added just like a unique kind of dimensional detail underneath the stained glass. I thought it looked really cool. I mean, I've seen so many different types of stained glass nail designs, like on clear nails, etc. And I wasn't really sure like how to make it work on a dark base like blue hour, but I think this worked out really well. And again, the key to a stained glass nail, I feel like at the end of the day, is definitely just like a really good jelly color. So these worked perfectly as well. And I'm basically just using a brush and kind of dabbing it in there and kind of keeping my application kind of light and just feathering it in. You really don't need a ton of color, and you still want it to be like pretty translucent. So that is basically the technique I'm using for all the different squares. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let the clips play while I finish adding in that color. Here's the final result for this nail. So I went ahead and top coated it, and I love how these two nails look together. These are the only two nails that are different on the two different hands, but every other nail art that we're doing is gonna be just matching on the other hand, and you'll see what I mean. So I'm mixing a white gel with just a little bit of gray because, I mean, you can't really see it here, but I didn't want it to be like too white. But it's very subtle, so you probably just use like a white, but I just wanted to make sure what I was drawing showed up. So we're basically just drawing a flower here. So I'm basically starting at a point and then drawing the edges of the leaves. And this is like super random and just kind of freestyled. I'm also drawing some petals that are more circular with like wavy edges for the lines. The technique we're gonna be using here is basically just filling this in with a white gel, kind of stippling that in, and then we're gonna be layering a bunch of blue colors and kind of going for like a watercolor kind of storybook, dreamy effect. So this is us just kind of sketching it out. It doesn't need to be perfect, and this is kind of what I mean with like just the stippling motion. Like, as long as it's mostly covering it, it's okay, but it doesn't need to be like perfectly applied here. And we're gonna go back in with like the colors that I mentioned to really outline the details as well. So I wouldn't worry too much about the flower being like a perfect design necessarily, because the details and the design is really gonna come to life with the different colors we're gonna be adding. once that's cured, I'm taking our Crystal Dewdrop gel polish. This is also from the Sugar Plum Fairy collection. This is one of our most popular colors. It's a really nice kind of soft powdered jelly blue. It is perfect for this design. So I'm basically just gonna go ahead and apply that over the white, and you'll see that this is where like using jelly colors really kind of, because they're more translucent and sheer, it's really easy to kind of create more of like a soft kind of almost like watercolor, like storybook effect with them, because that's really what I'm going for here. Versus if I use like a darker blue, it would just kind of cover that white. So just using like a jelly color like this just really automatically, you know, already kind of creates this really nice kind of whimsical like shaded effect, if that makes sense. Like even though like the white is kind of showing on the edges, like that's totally fine. Like that's kind of what we're going for. But anyways, once that's fully cured, I'm taking a darker blue and I'm taking like the smallest amount of product and just stippling that around the edges, because again, we're really going for that, and I promise this is the last time I'm gonna say it, that kind of like watercolor effect. Like I'm not necessarily like trying to do like harsh lines or anything necessarily, like a perfect outline. So this is where just using that kind of stippling motion, and you can see like this is literally how much product I have on my nail brush. Like you can't even see it. I'm using a pretty pigmented like solid blue color. You can use any blue color that you have, and just using that stippling motion really helps ensure that like too much of the product is not getting concentrated, and it kind of looks like it's blended out. So we're just going to continue doing that and outline the different petals, and we are going to layer like 2 more different colors, but they all kind of come together in the end to kind of create the look that we're going for. So I will let the rest of the clip play until I get to the next color. So same thing here. Now I'm taking a lighter blue and using that same stippling motion to spread it out. And again, you can see I have very little product on my brush. We're just making sure everything looks light and blended and that the colors are kind of just melting together. You just kind of have to trust the process, but by the end, it all really comes together. So as I'm applying it, I'm just kind of like checking like that I'm not applying too much product. And again, the key to this is really just picking like a few different shades of blue. So you can see here now for my 3rd shade, I've mixed a blue and the dark blue and a gray, and I'm just re-outlining those petals that we had already kind of drawn before. And it does kind of cover up that blue that we first did, but not completely. Like there's some places where that first layer of blue that we did will still kind of peek out, but really it's just kind of the different layering of the colors that brings the whole effect together. And then I went ahead and added the center of the flower with Blue Hour. And you can see at this point, the flower has really kind of come to life. And now we're gonna draw the stems and the leaves. So I'm just outlining that in white again, just drawing a long line with the liner brush, and then just kind of these little lines sticking out. Again, these don't need to be perfect because we are going to layer color on top of them. So I'm taking those same jelly colors, including one more different jelly green that's a little bit lighter, and just filling that in over the white. And the white is cured underneath. And again, the jelly colors are just perfect for this because they add a dimension of color without overpowering kind of the white underneath it, and it kind of really, you know, looks more blended out that way. At least to me it does, because that's really the look I was going for with this, was something very kind of whimsical and dreamy. And once I layer those 2 different greens, I'm gonna go ahead and cure, and then we're gonna add in a little bit of solid green at the bottom. We're using like the tiniest amount, and we're gonna concentrate that at the bottom, and again use the stippling motion to kind of blend that out. If you haven't tried like blending or, you know, just like working with different, you know, shades of the same color when it comes to your nail art, I would highly recommend it. You know, just like some form of shading or whatnot. It's really fun, and it can really add a lot of detail to your nail art and kind of take it to a different level and kind of give it a more interesting look. So this is how the nail set is looking. This is the little bunny that we're gonna be drawing next. So I already finished it on the other hand, so I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I did that. So we're gonna start by sketching out the outline of the bunny. So just kind of these long, elongated, like almost like elongated U shapes. And I kind of have to compare to the one that I've already drawn just to make sure everything kind of lines up and matches as closely as I can. And for the head, It's kind of like this backwards J. Just like the flowers, we really just need the rough kind of outline, and we're gonna fill that in and add more color. So for the ears, kind of like sideways triangles, but you know what I mean, bunny ears are tall, you know, kind of add a little curve to them if you can. And then I kind of messed up there, so I had to redo it. So I'm kind of enhancing the top of the back, and then for the tail, it's just basically a kind of, you know, C shape. And then for the feet, we're just drawing these two little kind of elongated circles here. And breaking it down step by step really helps. I don't think I've ever drawn a bunny before. This is my first time. But yeah, once you get the outline down, you basically just want to fill it in with white. And pretty much following the same pattern we did for the other nails, we're taking Crystal Dewdrop, which again is our soft powder jelly blue. You can shop on our website at doperthanyournails.com, and be sure to use code YouTube to save. Link is in the description, and that will save you 10%. So yeah, following the same routine here, we're taking Crystal Dewdrop and using that as our first layer of blue to basically cover the entire outline and everything that we've drawn. And once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and fully cure, and then again taking that same dark blue, very small amount, and using a stippling motion to go around the perimeter of the outline that we've drawn. And you can also start using this to kind of draw in some other parts of the bunny's basically body shape. So like, you know how the ears would, you know, naturally have that kind of line in the middle, you can go ahead and start outlining that. You can even start adding a little bit more detail to the face, but we are going to be going in with another shade, a darker shade for the outline after, so we'll enhance it at that point. But for now, this is just kind of our first layer of color that we are adding. And I apologize if things are getting a little bit out of focus. It's so interesting because I've stopped wearing a glove on the other hand to prevent a reflection, but I think sometimes it's just kind of like where I'm positioning myself when I'm filming. I might be trying out yet another light soon, so stay tuned. But anyways, so yeah, you can basically use it to start creating some of that dimension and depth, like, you know, where the stomach area is, around the feet. And then once that's all done with the first layer, you can go ahead and cure. And this is what we're going for at the end. This is the other nail. So now I'm taking that lighter blue and I'm kind of putting 3 small dots and then using this kind of blending brush tool. It's a little bit messed up, but it works fine. It kind of helps spread everything out kind of on a larger surface area like this. And then we're mixing that blue with the gray, and this is going to be our final layer. This is kind of our third color. So again, just kind of using 3 different shades, and this is where we're going to go in over that same outline and really enhance it. So, you know, adding in that detail between the ears and, you know, enhancing that stomach area and all of that. So we're just going to go ahead around the edges, and I do cure between each layer as well. And just using Blue Hour for the eye and top coating once everything is cured. This is how the 2 bunnies are looking. They're not completely identical, but they're close enough. So that can be kind of the tricky thing, is kind of mirroring them exactly. I think it's a little bit tougher when you're filming, but it's definitely close enough. And I think they both have their unique characters. So this is the final results of the bunny, and this is where we are with our press-on nail set. So we've got 4 more nails to go, but 2 designs. So for the next nail, we are going to draw a bow. And so the easiest way to do this is to start by drawing an X and then connecting and creating a loop on each side. And that's what it should look like once you've done that. And we're gonna try to make this a little bit of like a thicker bow with a little bit more dimension. So I'm kind of drawing the underside of the bow and connecting that on both sides, just using very curved lines. Drawing a circle at the center and then drawing the 2 strings, just using a longer liner brush really helps with that and kind of making them a little bit wavy on some parts, and then I did want to make them a little bit thicker. Again, trying to make it look a little bit more dimensional and 3D, so I just kind of keep using my brush to enhance those lines, but making sure that they're, you know, still kind of following kind of that wavy kind of curved shape, but, you know, only certain parts are a little bit thicker. So I've done that a couple times here, just kind of gradually building up the product, and I ended up making the edges a little bit like feathered. I thought that looked like it was kind of, you know, matching the design, so that's what I'm doing here. And then I went ahead and filled all of that in with white and cured. So once again, same technique that we used for the other designs. We're just gonna go ahead and fill in with white, fully cure, and then we're going in with that crystal dewdrop as our first layer. Sometimes I like to put a generous amount down and then just kind of use that to spread it all around versus going in and grabbing more and more color. So that's what I'm doing here. And again, it doesn't need to fully cover that white. If there's some parts that are kind of peeking out or some parts that seem lighter, it actually works better for the design. It, you know, kind of unintentionally, but, you know, kind of in an easy and simple way, creates different types of dimension all throughout the nail art. So as you can see here, the strings are a little bit lighter, and that's okay. Go ahead and fully cure that, and then we are using that same dark blue and stippling motion to start outlining the edges of the bow. And you can see this is what my nail art palette is looking like. So I'm even using that to outline the center of the bow, and then going all along the edges, including that inner kind of circle as well. I can't remember if I already said this, but I don't often use like the same exact color palette all throughout for the nail art, and this is probably the first set that I've really done that, or at least in a while, and it was really nice to do. I think it kind of gives, you know, kind of a cohesive feel, and you kind of just use the same colors all throughout. You could definitely also do a bunch of different colors, but I think since we're really leaning into the blue, this worked really well. Anyway, since it's pretty much the same technique, I'm just gonna go ahead and let the clips play while you watch me pretty much finish outlining that, and then I'll come back for the second color. So now we're going in with that lighter blue, and we're kind of concentrating it at the bottom of the bow there, and then using the blending brush to kind of blend that out. And it's subtle, but you can see there is a difference between the two sides and kind of how it looks. So again, we're gonna go ahead and repeat that, just using a small amount of color. It's always better to kind of gradually build in the color. It's always easier to add more. If you add too much and you go and you cure it, there's really not much you can do. So I just went ahead and repeated that all around the bow. Also doing that at the center. And I am going to bring that down into the kind of two strings as well. You know, if it starts to look kind of messy or uncohesive, honestly, that's kind of what I was going for here. I mean, not necessarily messy, but I think that kind of storybook vibe really comes through with that. So even with, you know, the strings, you know, if there are certain parts that don't look the same on both sides, that's totally okay. And then I went ahead and added just a little bit more blue. I think I added more blue to this one than I did the other designs, but it worked out pretty well. And then I did kind of go back and add white, which I did not do for the other designs, but I feel like it was more fitting for this one. So if you feel like there were some areas that ended up being darker, you can go ahead and add like some subtle spots of white just to kind of lighten it back up again without losing the dimension. And I think it ended up looking pretty cool. So this is how the bow turned out after top coat. And for the final nail, we are drawing a little teacup. So this is all gonna be completely blue. So I'm just drawing the top of the cup, which is basically kind of an elongated circle, and kind of making that thicker, and then drawing the sides of that and just kind of curving in for the bottom of the cup. Again, like the same designs, it doesn't need to be perfect because it's all gonna get defined with the color. And then just drawing the handle there, keeping it pretty simple. And then just drawing the little kind of plate underneath, which is basically another kind of very elongated U, and filling that in with white. So once we fill this in with white, it's gonna kind of all start to blend together, but that's okay because once we go back and add the different shades of blue, it will start to differentiate a bit. And this is where, like, again, it doesn't need to be perfectly all filled in. Like you can see it was kind of patchy there. Just go ahead and cure and go in with the Crystal Dewdrop base as the first color, adding that in across the entire design and adding in a little bit more where needed so it really pops. And fully curing that before we go in with our darker blue. And where I'm really looking to define kind of the shading and dimension is where the bottom of the cup meets the plate, just so it doesn't hopefully look like one piece. But I am gonna make it all, you know, pretty much more or less the same color. So I did add a little bit more of that darker blue than I did for the other designs, just so the plate really kind of hopefully reads a little bit as its own. And then I added a little bit of jelly blue here as well, just to really darken it. And then I added some white, and that lighter blue I started to concentrate on the top of the mug. Honestly, there really isn't like a super set method. I kind of just go and see what colors would be good to add where needed. And then I used Winter's Veil at the top of the mug, and then I did add the Winter's Veil at the bottom of the plate, and just adding in a little bit more where needed. Adding that pearlescent white for the plate and the top of the mug really added a really cool effect. I didn't use that for the other nails, but you definitely could use Winter's Veil to kind of add shading and dimension as well and add kind of a pearly effect. And then after top coat, that's how it looks. And I did repeat that for the other nail, and that is the full set. Here is the final result with all 10 nails. I really love how this set turned out. Very whimsical, very kind of like dreamy storybook vibes. And I think all of the different elements really meshed well together. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. This is kind of a long one, but I try to walk you through it step by step. And again, you can shop the products that I used on my website, and be sure to use code YouTube to save 10%, and I'll see you in my next video.